Okay, so we already did this. We got Diane Keaton's thing. So this is that part 2, and it's really asking this question down at the very bottom. I'm going to make this a little bigger so you can see. Down at the very bottom, why does this really work? So we need to go through and figure out why is this really working for us? And so we got to go through and all of those things I had to do on IXL, where you had to combine like terms, do the distributive property, and so forth. These are all going to come back into help. So the first thing we have to do is kind of go through and look at that distributive property. So I'm going to go through and I'm going to distribute this 6. So 6 times x is 6x. 6 times 3 is 18. So that's that distributive property. And then everything else on here, everything else is exactly the same. So I'm still adding 9. I'm still subtracting 3 because that's this part right here. And then I'm dividing that whole thing by 3. I'm subtracting my original number. I'm subtracting 1. I'm subtracting my original guess, x. I'm going to multiply this whole thing by 10. And then I'm adding 4. So I didn't change anything. The only part I changed was that distributive property, and I had to multiply by 6. So then that next part is we're going to go through and we're going to combine our like terms. So like when I'm going to combine my like terms, I'm just going to look at this particular grouping. So this 18, this 9, and this 3, because my PEMDAS rule says we're going to do our groupings together. Well, I can just combine like terms, and that would make this a whole lot of sense. I'm going to ignore this stuff right here, and I'm going to ignore that 10, and I'm just going to do that part right there, because then that will make it a lot easier for me. So again, I've got my 6x. I haven't done anything to do that to this. And so now I'm taking this part right here, and I'm going 18 plus 9. So 18 plus 9 gives me 27, minus 3 gives me 24. So I've done that much. Now I'm still dividing this whole thing by 3. That's all I'm doing. I'm dividing by 3. I'm still subtracting my original number. I'm subtracting 1. I'm subtracting my original guess, x. And then I'm multiplying this whole thing by 10, and I'm adding 4. So then the next piece of this is like, oh, okay. So now we've got to go through and we've got to follow the rules where you're going to divide by 3. And you can't just combine the 6x and the 24 because they're not like terms. The 6 has an x and the 24 doesn't. So what happens is we got to divide. We have to go 6 divided by 3. And 6 divided by 3 is 2. And x divided by 3 is just x. And then 24 divided by 3 is 8. And then a positive divided by a positive gives you positive 8. And so now that fraction is all gone, and you're like, oh, phew, I'm so happy that fraction's gone because none of us like fractions. I don't care who you are. So you're going to subtract 8. You're going to subtract x. You're going to subtract 1, subtract x. You have that as a number. You've got all this. You're going to multiply by 10, and now you're going to add 4. So now we're going to go through, and we're going to give even more of our combining like terms. So I've got all of my x's. I'm going to combine those. And remember, you're going to put the sign in front of the x. The sign goes with it. And then I have everything inside those parentheses that are not x's. So I've got 8, and I've got 1. So if I look at just my x's, so I've got 2x minus 1x. 2x minus 1x, because that's a 1, is just 2x, is just 1x. So 2 minus 1 is 1. And then minus another 1x. So 1 ends up being 0x. So my x's went away. So the next piece of the puzzle is I'm going to do my combined like terms of my non-x's. So 8 and minus 1 ends up being 7. So 8 minus 1 ends up being 7. And then I have all this stuff. I've still got my 10. I'm multiplying that by 10. And then I'm adding 4. Well, let's simplify this just a little bit more. 0 times x is nothing. So I don't really need to write that. So really, I've got 10. So that stayed the same, but inside this parentheses, the only thing I really have is 7. Well, what's 10 times 7? So 10 times 7 is 70. And then plus 4 gives me 74. So that was the age of Diane Keaton. So now when we go through and do this, this should work out to be pretty good. This should work out that this will be, that was our original guess, and we should have done this correctly. My question to you is, now that I've given you this video, why does this actually work? Why does this little number trick actually work? Because you're going to have to go through and you're going to have to kind of figure out why your number trick works. Think about this little step right here. What happened to go from this step up here, 10, to the parentheses 2x minus x, to get to your next step of 10 times 0x plus 7, and then parentheses plus 4. So think about that to answer that particular question.